Lindsay here, the Frugal Crafter. Today I'm going to show you how to make a magic card. And, oh, I said that like a magician. It's a magic card. And when you pull it up, it appears that your image is getting colored before your eyes. It's a really fun technique, and it's very easy to make. And somebody had told me that there are companies coming out with dies to do this, but it's very easy to make this by hand, and I'm going to show you how today. This video is brought to you by Top Flight Stamps, and that's where I got these stamps by Indigo Blue. Top Flight is an American company that curates stamps from around the world, and they bring you really beautiful ones that you may not be able to find in your regular stores. So this one is called Shine Bright, and I thought it would be perfect for this magic card because you have a light bulb that will almost literally turn on when you pull it out of the card. So I went with kind of a steampunk vibe here, and made this little card, and I'm going to show you how. So the first thing we're going to do is a stamping, because we do have to allow time for our ink to dry. What you're going to need first, and I will put a full materials list in the video description so you don't have to write it down as we go. You're going to need a piece of transparency and a piece of white cardstock, and I'm just using, you know, cheap white cardstock. Anything from your scrap bin is fine. Now I'm using inkjet transparency film, and I'm just going to show you what this looks like. Just look for the words inkjet, but you can get this in any office supply store. This is a Office Max brand, but I think Avery makes it. Probably Staples has their own brand. But the nice thing about the inkjet transparency film is that I can use my dye-based inks on it. You don't want to use archival ink. Archival has like a bit of an oil in it, or a pigment ink. Those aren't going to dry, but I can use my Memento ink, and that's going to dry. And what you want to do is just kind of feel the transparency, and you'll see that one side has a coating on it. One side is perfectly shiny, and the other side has a little bit of a hazy coating on it, and that is the side that you want to stamp on. So the first thing I'm going to do is stamp on my white cardstock, and I'm going to use this light bulb from that set. The set has a lot of really awesome images in it that we can use for different things, and I love how there's like kind of background random images just for like kind of adding accents and distressing and stuff. So I thought it'd be a very versatile set for people, especially if they don't have a lot of stamps, or maybe they don't have many stamps that could be used for men and women, because I know I tend to lean more towards feminine designs. So when I find something really interesting that has a lot of cool textures and shapes that I can use for masculine cards as well, I tend to want to grab them. So what I'm going to do is just kind of center this up towards the bottom. And I just like to give myself a few seconds for the ink to transfer. I'm stamping right on my hard table, but this stamp set comes with cling foam already attached, so it stamps really great. So the next thing we're going to do is just quickly dry this with a heat tool, or you can just wait a second and let it dry. The reason you have to make sure it's dry is because you're going to put your transparency right on top and stamp again. So you can see it didn't take me very long. I didn't edit anything out there. All right, so now I'm going to put this with the coated side up, the side that will take the ink up. And I'm going to put this right down on top. Don't worry if you don't get it perfectly lined up when you stamp it, because we're going to be trimming this down. There's a little bit of fuss that we have to do when we start fitting everything, kind of like you're tailoring a dress to fit you. There's a little bit of kind of, you know, trimming and fussing as we go, just to make sure we get a really good fit and the card moves well. So what I'm going to do is just hold it down. My cardstock buckled a little bit when I heated it, and I'm going to stamp this as close as I can right on top. And it's probably not going to be perfect. You could use a stamp positioner if you're worried about that, but it's really not important, and I go for ease over fuss whenever I can, even though there's fussy bits in this card. Okay, just give it time for the ink to transfer. And there we go. So now we have it on the transparency, and we have it on the background. I'm going to set the transparency aside. Now keep in mind, when you're working with transparencies, they're very easy to lose because they're clear. So set them somewhere where you know you'll be able to find them again. I'm going to put them on my white table, just out of shot there. Now I'm going to color, and I use Memento ink like I mentioned before, because archival ink is not going to dry. Since I'm using Memento ink, I want to color it with my alcohol pens. So what I'm going to do, since this is just cheap, you know, not drugstore cardstock, it's cheap department store cardstock, I'm going to prime the area that I want to color. And I'm just going to go in and color this with my lightest yellow first. I'll put a link to everything I use in the video description so you can find everything. If you're not watching on YouTube and you can't see my links, if you just go to topflightstamps.com and click on the brands in Indigo Blue, you will find this stamp set. All right, so this priming this, whenever you're working on cardstock that's not like a Nina or a really good quality marker cardstock, this is going to help your colors blend. So now I'm going in with my darkest color. If I was coloring this on Nina, I would just start with my darkest color right on the edges. But since I'm not, I got to do that little bit of prep work so my colors will blend. Always a good idea to turn your work so that it's comfortable for you to reach. I'm just doing a going right up to the edge with this color. When I do prime the paper, I don't go right up to the edge because I find that often the cheaper cardstocks do feather. So I'm just being mindful of that. And I'm going to go in with this medium tone, kind of overlap the edge. Then back in with my first color, the lightest one of all, and just kind of blend it in. We get a nice pretty glow there. And then for the bottom of my light bulb, I'm just going to use a couple shades of warm gray, and I just think warm gray has a more vintage feel, and I'm using some warm gray metallic cardstock too. So I have warm gray 5. This one's Copic. The other ones are Blick. The Blick markers are really affordable, and I think they're as good as Copic. So if you are looking for a more affordable choice, they don't have as many color options. They only have like 95 colors total, plus a clear blender, but they are a great quality marker. Now, if you make a mistake and you go out of the lines, you can use the chisel edge of any clear blender to kind of scooch your ink back. But I didn't make a mistake on this one, which is a miracle. I did on the other one, so I just had it there just in case. Okay. So I'm going to set this aside with my transparency and just let those dry completely. Now the next thing you're going to need is I took a 12 by 12 piece of cardstock and I cut it down so it's 12 inches by 5.5 because I wanted this to fit in a regular envelope. So if I fold this up, I'm going to have a 4 by 5.5 card. So it's going to be just a little roomy in a regular A2 envelope. So what I need to do is cut a window from this center panel, and I'm going to use a die cut, just a rectangle die cut. You could use any shape you like, and you can also use scissors or a craft knife if you want to do this. But I'm going to go over to my die cutter, cut this out, and I'm going to come right back. All right, cut this piece out, and I'm going to save this because we're going to use that on the back of the card. And now I'm going to figure out what's going to be the inside panel. Yeah, I think I'll have that on the inside. I still might need to trim a little bit off because it still wants to puff up a little bit, but I just basically needed to figure out what was the inside panel because I need to punch a hole here in this middle layer. So what I'm going to do is just punch a notch, and this notch is going to be so that I can have like a ribbon on my card there to pull out. It's going to let that sit flush in my card. I just got to make sure I don't punch deeper than the top of this window. So I'm just kind of eyeballing it and going to give it a little punch. And then I'm going to have a little notch there. So what I'm going to do now is just actually shear off just a little bit there because I just feel like it's not as tight as I want it to be. I feel like I need a little more room, so I'm just going to shear off a little bit right there. And I think I'm going to shear off a little bit on this side too because I just feel like it's hanging over a little too much. Okay, so now everything folds up nice and flat. The next thing I want to do is stamp the sentiment on the inside of this window. So it's actually stamped right on that part with a notch, but you want to do it when it's folded up so you can kind of center it up where you want it. And this says Shine Bright. This would make a really great card for someone going off to college or someone with a brand new job or someone just graduated. I'm going to stamp that right in the middle center, kind of down low in the middle, like that. And then we're just going to let that dry. So we need to do some work with these connected together, but we can't keep it as connected together as like when we as we go along, but we want to kind of anchor them for right now. So I'm just going to put a strip of adhesive right there, and I'm going to line this up. This is not, that strip is going to be trimmed off later, but it's just going to help me figure out width and make sure everything is lined up. So I just lining up my transparency to the design underneath, and then I can just tack it down. So now I need to figure out how much I need to trim off of this. Now I want to do some decorating, and I want to use some brads, and I want to kind of make a stop up here so when I pull my card out, it doesn't go all the way out. Okay, I want it to catch so that it's going to be easier for the recipient to slide it back down in. So I need to have a little tab on the side, and it's better if I can just cut around the tab and leave it connected so I don't have to glue on another piece of cardstock and have it look kind of less elegant. So that's what we're going to do. And I think that I just need to figure out how far I want that to come over. So the first thing I need to do is trim off this side a little bit. And I'm going to use my little cutter here because I think it'll be a little bit easier to see what I'm doing. Because I can do it right here on my table. I'm going to take about 1/4 of an inch off here. And it's just easier if you trim these two layers together because then they'll, you know, they'll match up when you're working with them. So I've trimmed 1/4 of an inch off, and now I want to see how it's going to slide in my little sleeve. So the reason we have this kind of trifold is because the transparency is going to go over the layer with the notch, and then the colored piece is in behind, and then that final trifold kind of closes around it. So I just want to kind of see where I want things to go. So I'm going to need to trim a little bit off on that side just because it's not, even if I have that shoved all the way over there, it's still not centering up. And I'm just pulling this out, and I'm just going to see where I should put the notch on the bottom. So I want to just leave a little tab on the bottom here. So it's better to cut less than you want to remove because you can always cut more. That makes sense, doesn't it? So I'm just going to cut in about 1/4 of an inch, and then I'm going to cut down. And I'm doing this with scissors because you're not going to really see this, and it's just a little easier for me. So I'm cutting off this little channel here. I'm just going to trim this a little bit more because I know that was a little bit tight. But I just want to make sure that when I pull it out, I'll be able to see the whole image. And I am going to be putting a brad to kind of close or stop this card from coming all the way out. It'll make sense in a minute. It probably seems very confusing. You don't have to do that tab, but that tab's only if you don't want to be able to remove the entire thing, which I do not. Okay, so you'll be able to pull that out, and then I'll have a brad right there that's going to stop that from going further out. And I think that's going to work. Okay, so now that I've got that pretty free moving, I can go ahead and start to adhere things. So the first thing I want to do is I want to put a strip of it. Actually, the first thing I want to do is do that treatment with the brad. So I'm going to start off by putting this decorative strip. It's just a couple strips of silver cardstock that I had embossed. It's the metallic kind. It's not like mirror, but it's kind of metallic-y. And I am just going to adhere that down on this edge here. Just line it up to the edge. Actually, I like to close my card when I do that because then I can make sure I'm actually going up to the edge. It can be hard to tell if you're trying to line up to a score line. And then I'm just going to trim it from the back. I can see where I go. And then I really want to put my my brad as close to the edge as I can, just so it's just going to catch that that little tab. So I'm going up as close to the top and the edge as I can. So I'm just going right up here. And I'm going to do one down here just to kind of balance it out. And then I've got these cute little brads. They are, they look like screw heads kind of. And I got them at Oriental Trading a long time ago online. I don't know if they still have them or not. They're kind of hard to find, but there we go. Actually, you know what? Let's do this. Let's go through all 3 layers. I forgot I was going to put a strip to hide those brad ends. We can go through all 3 layers. Let's do that. Sorry about that. We're punching through all 3 layers. See, you know, good thing I did this before I filmed it, because otherwise, imagine what a train wreck it would be. So I'm going to use 2 that match. Some have little pluses and some have little minuses on them. I think that's what they're called, plus and minus brads. Or you can Google screw top brads. I'll see if I can find a link for you, but if not, you can hunt around. I don't know why, I think they're so cute. I can't believe the steampunk movement that they're not more available. But anyway, so we're opening that up. Don't worry, we're going to cover that up on the back, but that's keeping that side closed. And then I'm going to use score tape because it's just the easiest way I can add a really, really thin line of adhesive. That's going to go right here. But I do want to put this in, but I can't put that in yet because I haven't got my little centerpiece in. Okay, what I want to do now is trim off this gluey area. sure I got all of that adhesive. I think I did. I might have left a little smidgen, but that's all right. And now I am going to take a piece of ribbon, and I just want to make sure that's going to line up with what I have in there for a notch. I think it is. I'm going to staple that ribbon just looped around just like that, and that's going to stick out from the top of the card, so hopefully the recipient will know what to do. They'll know to pull it. And there's just like the tiniest little sliver of adhesive left on this, on that edge, so hopefully it doesn't gum anything up, but it's helping keep everything together. And staple right through that. And then we can put this part in, and that should work out. I might need to trim a little bit off the bottom, but we're going to see. I think it's going to be all right. I don't have the layers separated though, so let's separate the layers and check. The key is we want this middle piece to really kind of sit down in the card. We don't want it sticking out too much. Actually, I think that's going to work out all right, and then that other brad should kind of stop that. And the score tape is going to be right along that edge, so I'm just going to put that on really quickly. Can you see that? Just right along that edge. I just want to make sure it's not going to catch my little design there. Okay, you can tear off any excess. All right, now I want to put that other brad in, and we'll see how that looks. I think that's going to work out all right. I know it's going to work out all right. I just hope it's not going to take me an hour to film this puppy. There we go. All right, great. And if you find that at this point it's not sliding as easily as you want, you may need to trim something. So a lot of times you can just kind of pivot, pull it out, and then, excuse me, and then what I'd probably do is I think I'm going to trim a little bit more off this side and then trim a little bit off the tab. So there's a little bit of this, you know, you might need to trim a little bit off the other side. Just, you know, be prepared that you're going to spend a little time fussing with this card. Just to be completely honest, I want to let you know I did take this out and I did trim about 1/4 of an inch off of this side, so you can see how much skinnier that is versus what it was before. I just wanted to let you know that I'm like, it wasn't sliding quite as nicely as I wanted, so if that happens, just trim a little bit off. So now you're probably seeing why people will spend for pricey dies to do this, because it is a little fussy. Okay, so on the back of this, we've got those brads. That's not very pretty to look at, so what we're going to do is actually add a place that people can add a message, because this card does not open, and I thought you could adhere this onto like a folded card base if you want to. However, that's going to be pretty bulky, so I thought, why don't I just use this? I'm using the leftover paper, and I like to recycle, so that works for me. And I'm just going to use a couple stamps that are also in that kit that comes with these pretty butterflies, and it also comes with this kind of distressed edge. And then I'm just going to stamp the smaller version of the light bulb, like what I have on the front, in black. And I just think it's just kind of a fun little motif. Plus, I have to tell you, I like to fill up the area a little bit because sometimes I can't think of what to say. So, so that kind of works out. And then I just embossed another one of these little strips so that I'd be able to cover up those brads and kind of mirror what I have going on the front. So repeating your design elements in a card just makes it look a little bit more put together and professional and intentional. Now this is a coordinations cardstock. It's black on one side, white on the other. You could sand this and distress it if you wanted to. I did that a little bit, but I didn't like it, so I ended up covering the edges with washi tape on my original one, but you can see I did a little distressing there. I don't know, it's up to you. If you want a grungy look, go ahead and do that, but if you don't, then don't. So it's completely up to you. I am going to adhere this piece down, which will keep the card together. And then people are like, how did she do that? Because they won't know your secrets because you're covering up the brads. They're gonna be like, how'd they do that? Oh, I didn't glue that on very straight. but I like to hide the little brad legs. I think it looks a little bit more put together. That's up to you though. I'm gonna trim that off. And then however much washi tape you want to add is completely up to you. Whatever embellishments you want to add is completely up to you. You know, just, you don't even have to go the whole length. You could just do a couple like just random bits. I think that looks pretty too. Just make sure you don't cover over the cover over anything, because you might impede this coming out. Okay, so you don't want to wrap your tape around. I did that and I had to cut it. If you can see right here, I had this tape wrapped around the edge. I thought I had enough room, but I didn't, and so I had to cut through it, and then it did kind of gum things up a little bit. So you just want to make sure that that you're leaving plenty of room for things to slide around. And I think the rough edges actually do look kind of cool. If you do want to tape around the bottom, that's not a big deal, but it's just that kind of that top edge you'll need to leave free and open. Washi tape is not really that structural, so if you are doing this to kind of hold your card together, that is not going to be the best idea, just because it is not a really strong adhesive, so it might just end up tearing on you. So we got that. I thought it'd be cool to put a few little embellishments on there. I'm just going to use hot glue because it's a card. It doesn't need to have super strength, and I didn't want to accidentally use some wet glue and then like have it smear when I tried to kind of show it in action. So I'm just going to do a little bit of hot glue there. I know it's not very neat. Hopefully I didn't get that in the window. Just make sure you don't get your glue in the window. That's the only real consideration there. And make sure you don't burn yourself, of course. But for goodness sake, don't ruin the card. If you have to burn yourself, I mean, geez, that's nothing, but don't ruin the card. Totally kidding. Ow! Burning myself right now, actually. I have asbestos hands from all my years of hot glue use. You could sprinkle on some like microbeads or something while the glue's wet if you want to. It's completely up to you. But anyways, you get the gist after this, you know, hour and a half long video. No, what is it? Oh, it's taken, well, not too bad. It's taken me 25 minutes, not even in real time. And then we've got this beautiful magical card. Come on, bring the whole family. See the most magical card. The most magical card. So, in case you don't realize why we punched that tab in the middle, that is so when we slide this down, because this is straddling that middle layer, when we slide this down, that little staple, that is resting down in that tab that we punched. So that's why we punched the tab, in case you were, didn't kind of get, sometimes I don't get something until I do it myself, then I'm like, oh, that's why you have to do that. I'll like skip a step thinking that's not important. And then when I'm putting it together, it's like, oh, that's why we need the tab, because without the notch, it's not going to fit back in the sleeve. So there you go. It's magic. It's fun. I hope you give it a try. You don't need fancy dies. You can use the supplies you have, or if you want the ones I used, check them out. They're linked up in the video description. The stamps came from topflightstamps.com. They have a really wonderful selection, and the owner is super nice to deal with, so go check them out. Thank you so much for watching. Please give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed this video, and until next time, happy crafting!